Well, I always remember the story you tell about that you were always climbing trees, and something that happened when you and Beverly were climbing a tree one time.
I've never fallen out of a tree, but Grandma, she wasn't so bad as Mom and Dad not letting you climb a tree. But I'm so glad I grew up in Colorado with the good tight trees, because there's so many dead trees, and I would never stop climbing until you got to the top that swayed, and you would have thought, you know, these old trees here, you'd have broke it off and you'd been gone. But Beverly was way up ahead of me. And Grandma had a huge cotton, what do you call those? Yeah, that all that stuff dropped off. And so Beverly was way up and I was going up. And all of a sudden, here's Beverly coming down. Well, there was a great big branch sticking straight out, and Beverly landed and stripped both inside of her legs, and it had to hurt terribly, terribly bad. But when she grabbed it like this and said, "Whee, I'm riding a horsey." And we laughed and laughed, and I know it hurt, but it's so funny, that's what came out. And she didn't hit the ground. We never ever broke any bones or anything. But good. I remember many a time Mom standing. Oh, in fact, one time I had a boyfriend named Benjamin Lightfoot, and it's like we were in first grade, and I would go to his house and pick him up, and we'd walk to school, and I'd carry his books.
So you were an emancipated, independent woman, even
in love with this little boy, Benjamin Lightfoot. He must have had Indian blood in him to have had that name. He had black hair. But his mom would always stand there and just beam when we'd walk by. But anyway, I had went up in the tree and carved a circle with BL in it, and I'd make love to the tree. But I would look down, and there would be Mom with a switch, you know. And those things burned so bad, and we wore dresses then, so there wasn't nothing to break the blow. And she'd scream, and you're going to get it when you come down. You're going to get it when you come down. Well, needless to say,
you weren't supposed to be climbing.
No. And needless to say, I didn't come down. As long as she was screaming and yelling. And another favorite thing Beverly and I loved to do was steal Grandma's Jell-O. Well, she had a drawer this big, and it was lined with Jell-O, so she never missed it. But one day I wasn't with Beverly, and how
would she make Jell-O?
Out of Jell-O boxes.
Really?
I mean.
I was thinking Jell-O was a fairly new
No.
invention.
Oh no.
Was it flavored?
Oh yeah. And we'd get one take at the Playhouse, and gosh, that was and you know, later years you'd have those.
Would you just eat it in powder?
Lick it. But you know, you know, now they make those sticks, and that's all that is Jell-O that the kids eat. But you know, when we stole Grandma's Jell-O, she never knew it. But one day I was home all by myself, and I stole a box of green Jell-O and climbed the tree and ate it. You know, I'm sure I didn't eat the whole box. I probably stashed it away up there somewhere. But my downfall was when I got to the house, the car was sitting there and the mirror was there, and I stuck my tongue out to look in the mirror, and it was total green. Well, Dad was standing in the window and saw my green tongue come out. And I really, really got a whipping. And talk about whippings, one time, I don't know why Beverly wasn't with me, but they delivered ice in those big ice trucks to the houses. Everybody had ice boxes. And so I thought, oh, that's a neat way home. So I jumped on the back of the ice truck and had my legs hanging down, was riding along. Well, he went right by my house in a whiz. And I thought, oh my, you know, I've got to get off. So I jumped off and hit the gravel and rolled and skinned the whole, I had raw butt. But Dad was down in the garage and saw me do that. And when I got to the garage, oh, I got the hardest whipping for doing that. And then when I got in the house, Mom saw my rear end, and she said, I don't think she needed that spanking. I think she knows never to jump off the ice truck again. But anyway, that's just some of the things a little kid will do when she's all by herself. You can see Ava doing stuff if she's all by herself, but can you imagine never ever getting in serious trouble? And one time I was walking downtown streets of Aurora, and I looked, and it was kind of like a Western auto, but it was just filled with needs. Well, it had a bracelet in there, an Indian bead. It was leather, and then it had the Indian beading all the way around it. And I walked in and I said, I want the bracelet in the window. And I didn't have any money. And I said, would you charge it? I'll pay you $1/4 a week. And they did. So here I am wearing this bracelet. Why Mom doesn't say, where did that bracelet come from? And I went in every week, and I had an allowance, and I'd give him a quarter until it was paid for. But that's the way I got my bracelet. But I think that, why didn't Mom question, where did I come up with that bracelet?
Do you think that she was just so busy that, that
I would have obviously noticed you kids coming in with a bracelet.
Right.
No.
But I mean that she just wasn't that observant.
Yeah.
She was, her attention was focused elsewhere. So.
Right.
So what kind of work did Grandma and Grandpa do? Your mom and Dad?
Well, Dad worked at the Brokerage Dairy downtown, and he started out driving horses.
Did you ever get to go with him when he was working?
No. But before Mom and Dad got married, Dad had Mom on the Brokerage wagon. And Lord, she's dressed to high heaven, got on her heels and her darling dress, and her hair so pretty. We got a picture of her standing on the wagon. But Dad would take his cart of bottles and get off. And so he got off and went in to start delivering, and the horses ran away with Mom. And she was screaming bloody murder. And they went about 4 or 5 blocks and then stopped. And Dad came out just a laughing, because that was their assigned point to go to, but he hadn't told Mom. So she thought she was on a wagon with runaway horses, and he was just laughing. She was so mad at him, she wanted to kill him because she was scared to death.
Sure.
Yeah. But then they went on and got...
and were they just dating then?
Yeah. But when Mom and Dad got married, Grandma had been married so many times. Mom's real name was Christine Robbins, and then she married Harlan, and then she was officially Cox. But she went back home, and Dad went home, and nobody told that they were married. I don't know why, but she worked at the factory. But she said it was so hard for her to sign her name, because she'd forget who she was to sign her name. And so
how old was Grandma Cox when she and Grandpa got married?
I think she was 18, and Dad was 20. But Mom went to school with Uncle Bud when she was about 7th grade in Inglewood, which is on the other side of Denver. And one time she got on the streetcar, and Uncle Bud was there. And, they hadn't seen each other for years. So, it was just love at first sight. And so Uncle Bud asked Mom out for a date. But when he got home, he asked Dad, he said, I have a date tonight. Would you? Dad had a roadster, with a rumble seat in the back, and it was really neat. And he said, would you take us on our date? And so I have a picture up in the mountains, all three, Mom, Dad, and Uncle Bud. Well, Dad had the car, and he got the girl. And Dad went home, and he told Grandma, he said, I think I stole Buddy's girlfriend. And Grandma said, aren't you ashamed of yourself? And he said, oh, I'll never do it again.
That's cute.
But Dad told me, he said the first time he saw Mom, he thought she was the most beautiful girl he ever saw. And she was pretty. She had the most beautiful chestnut brown hair, and she died with it. Was it chestnut brown or sable brown? It's more of a sable, wasn't it? And I don't think she had a gray hair in it.